I never thought the day would come when I'd have to defend my own groceries from a self-appointed neighborhood dictator. But here we are, and honestly, you wouldn't believe how quickly a normal Saturday can go off the rails. Picture this. I'm wrangling 3 overstuffed paper bags from Costco, balancing my phone, fumbling for my keys, and out of nowhere I hear this shrill voice, "Those are mine," cut through the peace like a siren on a lazy afternoon. And for a split second, I'm thinking, is she talking to me, or did some raccoon sneak off with her Amazon package again? I turn, nearly dropping a week's worth of eggs, and there she is, Karen, in all her suburban glory, storming across my lawn, every bob hair in her helmet haircut bouncing in righteous indignation. And honestly, if you'd seen the homemade uniform khakis, polo with a crooked oakage HOA stitched over her chest, some kind of paper badge pinned on, and a whistle dangling from her neck, you might have thought she was the world's worst mall cop. Only this time, her beat was my front porch, and her target was my groceries. Excuse me. I manage because I'm just 3 months into this townhome community and still learning the rules, or so I thought. She's at the bottom of my steps, chest puffed out like she's leading a parade. All bulk purchases must be registered with the HOA for redistribution. I'm the president, and I oversee community resources. I swear for a second, I almost laughed. Except she looked deadly serious. Now, you ever get that feeling like you've stepped into a parallel universe where logic took a vacation? That was me, just staring at my own rotisserie chicken and cereal like they might vanish. "These are mine," I say, trying to keep my cool. "I just bought them. With my money." But Karen's already climbing a step, hand reaching out like she expects me to surrender. I step back, bag teetering, heart pounding, thinking, is this real? No. I finally snap, managing to wedge my key in the door. "There's no such protocol. These are my groceries. You'll regret this," she threatens, phone already out. "I'm calling the authorities for theft of community provisions." You know that moment when you realize, yeah, she's absolutely going to call the cops? I watch her outside my window, finger jabbing at her screen, and 20 minutes later, there was flashing red and blue right in front of my house. All because I dared to bring home some groceries. It's wild, right? Because when I moved into Oakage, all the talk was about how laid back things were. Small maintenance fee, nothing but basic rules: no paint your house orange, don't run a nightclub out of your garage, that kind of stuff. It was perfect, exactly the kind of starter home a young professional dreams about. 2 bedrooms, a slick kitchen, a little yard, a porch for coffee. For the first few weeks, everything was idyllic. Neighbors nodded, minded their own business. Management fixed what needed fixing. Life was good. And then Karen moved in next door. The first time we met, I was planting some flowers, trying to make the place feel like home. She just appeared, clipboard in hand, fake smile locked in place, business card that read Community Organization Specialist, which, come on, you know that's not a real title. "Preliminary assessment of compliance," she said, and when I mentioned gardening, her pen hovered over that clipboard like she was taking down a confession. "Did you submit an exterior alteration form?" she pressed. "No, but the realtor and management said minor gardening was fine," I replied, already regretting it. "Not correct," she snapped, lips pursed. "Proper documentation is required for all modifications. I'll overlook it this time." She tapped her clipboard like a judge banging a gavel, and that was that. Days later, flyers appeared in every mailbox: Oakage Restoration Committee, with Karen as interim president, listing 23 new community standards she just invented. Most people laughed it off, saying we'd never even had a Real HOA board, but Karen didn't get the memo. She started her own inspections, slapping violation notices for things like non-standard welcome mats and unapproved plants. I got one for my bike showing through my window, visual aesthetic violation, apparently a Class 2 infraction. Bright yellow paper, fake clip art house, threatening a $50 fine, and if I didn't pay, interest at 15% per week plus, get this, a property lien. Yeah, okay. I knew enough about real estate to see through it, but I worried for the older residents who might not. I tried to talk to her politely, at first explained there's no active board, no authority, but she just waved me off, saying she was revitalizing dormant governance for everyone's benefit. Eventually, I decided to ignore her. What else could I do? But it didn't stop there. Every time I came home with groceries, Karen would be watching, making little comments. That's a lot of food for one person in a proper community. Resources are shared equitably. I try to laugh it off, but soon she was watching every arrival, snapping photos, saying it was for resource allocation planning. The woman actually installed a camera on her porch, pointed right at my driveway. I called management. They sent her a warning for privacy violations. Next day, the camera was in her window, peeking from behind the curtain. The real kicker? One day, I left some groceries on my porch while I went to grab more from the car. Came back on. My neighbor saw Karen take them, thought she was helping me. When I asked, Karen just shrugged, secured for the community stockpile. No apology. No return those beans and pasta were now reserves. The following week, a notice appeared, 10% of your groceries, every month, for the Oakage Emergency Pantry. Signed, Karen, President and Emergency Coordinator. My neighbors had never heard of this. Instructions listed coffee and chocolate as priority. And let's be honest, that was a little on the nose. So, I took all this to Linda at Property Management. She rolled her eyes. I wasn't the first. She wrote a letter confirming Karen had zero authority. No one owed her food or money, and any fees were invalid. She advised me to keep the letter handy, just in case, and document everything. If it's harassment, we'll take legal action. Fast forward Saturday. I'm hauling in a big grocery haul sales, bulk buys, trying to save some cash. Karen intercepts me on the walk, blocking my path in a getup that screamed, neighborhood watch gone wild, latex gloves, homemade badge, clipboard, even a scale. Inspection required, she declares. 30% of essentials to the pantry, those are the rules. Neighbors were watching, phones out. An older woman, Gladys, stood on her porch shaking her head, like here we go again. I pull my bags close. No such rules. Please move. She blocked me, threatened escalating penalties, property liens, even eviction. I finally snapped. Karen, enough. There's no legal authority, no pantry, and you have no right to my groceries. Move before this becomes legal. She actually called 911 right there. Yes, I need to report hoarding of essential supplies. I'm not kidding. A crowd gathered, people filming, some laughing, some just concerned. The police arrived, looking as baffled as I felt. I calmly explained, showed my receipts, closing documents, the letter for management. Karen ranted about emergency protocols and her presidency. The officers reviewed everything, and Karen started to unravel, unable to answer who appointed her or why she had the right to my groceries. Then I showed them doorbell footage of her stealing my groceries last week and today, reaching for my bags. This is clear evidence of theft, the officer said, and Karen's face went white. Now, here's where it gets wild. My neighbors started chiming in. Frank, older guy, flag enthusiast, pulled out his own fake citation from Karen, claiming his flag was at the wrong angle, $200 fine. Maria said Karen had threatened her kids for playing outside without submitting an outdoor recreation application. Another neighbor had been told to remove his satellite dish, which, yeah, federal law protects, but Karen claimed HOA rules superseded federal law. Michelle, a paralegal, said Karen tried to force her way inside for a compliance inspection. People shared stories: wind chimes too loud, grilling fees, garden gnomes needing permits. It was like an HOA parody had come to life. The officers finally had enough. Ma'am, you have no legal basis for these claims. You cannot demand groceries. Filing false police reports is a crime, and this behavior may be harassment. They told me I could press charges or file for a restraining order. Karen protested. I'm just establishing standards. But nobody was buying it. And when someone shouted that the whole thing was already on the neighborhood Facebook page with videos, the last of Karen's authority melted away. Frank suggested we start a real community group, not an HOA, just a neighborhood support network, block parties, a real garden. Nothing mandatory, no fees. People loved it. Contact info exchanged, plans made for a picnic. For the first time, I felt like part of a community, united not by rules but by the sheer absurdity of surviving Karen's reign of terror. We actually thanked her for bringing us together. 3 days later, I found a half-eaten rotisserie chicken on my porch. No note, just greasy fingerprints and footage of Karen sneaking up at noon to leave it there. It was petty, weird a warning, I guess. When I checked the camera, I also found footage of her creeping around my yard at 2 a.m., checking my door handle. I reported it all. The police took it seriously, suggested a restraining order. So, here I'm still living in the trenches of suburban warfare, still keeping my groceries under lock and key, but now with a united neighborhood at my back and more stories than I ever wanted about HOA drama. If you ever find yourself facing off with a self-appointed president over who owns your groceries, take my advice. Document everything, stick with your neighbors, and never underestimate the power of a half-eaten chicken to keep things interesting. And here's the real question, is Karen the villain here? Or just a symptom of a society obsessed with control and order? Where's the line between community and tyranny? I'd love to hear your take. Tell me in your view, who's really in the right? And what does true justice look like in a community like ours? Drop your thoughts, your wildest HOA stories, or your hot take on neighborhood power trips, because if I've learned anything, it's that everybody's got a Karen story, and sometimes sharing them is how we get our sanity back.